Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday! Alright, while this intro music plays, I'm just gonna set up the restream on Watch Me Work, and we will get into some game development. Alright, pretty much all set up. I'm just gonna pop up my chat for on the YouTube stream. Alrighty, so when we last left off, we were developing a new skill for Maya, and I said it was going to be a three-part series. One with being setup and planning, two with kind of being more focused on fine-tuning and animations, and three being VFX. Unfortunately, there was a lot of junk to work through with things like offsets and positions, and I ended up finishing the effects sort of off stream. But I would like to share with you the setup. Well, I'll show you the result first. If you haven't already seen it on our week 18 development update video, which was posted earlier today, you may have seen it already. But let's select in viewport. Actually, let me just go to my advanced settings here and just reduce this back to 720p, and I'll play in viewport. Also, please let me know in the comments if the audio quality is alright. I was playing around with my hardware settings. I actually got a camera for the stream, so you guys could see me as I work, but having some trouble setting it up at the moment. So, but in trying to hook it up, I ended up messing up all my audio settings. So let me know if these are okay. I think I've got a good balance, but I don't know. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If not, let me know. Right. So, right now the skill is pretty much fully functional. We go into our skill stance, and we can hold triangle to charge up. Not sure how loud that is for you guys. It's pretty loud in my headphones, but I imagine that it's lower on your side, so it shouldn't be as jarring, but yeah, the skill works. It's a strong, high damage, high cost skill. Looks pretty cool. So I actually need to clean up the blueprint a little bit, and in that process I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to share and explain what exactly is happening to get that all to work. So let's open up Maya's blueprint. Let's check it out of source control. That song was really short. Oh, I like this song. It runs in Metal Gear Solid. Anywho, did this check out? If I refresh it? Yeah, we did. Oh, that I didn't refresh immediately. Okay, so let's load this up here. Now, this is a function, but if we go to her event graph, we have sort of a logic to how things are color-coded and labeled. Basically, you know, we have other skills we've been working on: stream, crash, surf. Here we have Lance, the one we just built. So, let's begin. How this is happening, we have our custom event Lance execute. This is called from basically wherever the player input is for the triangle button, which is, well, right here, input action, face button top. Triangle on a PlayStation controller. I can't remember offhand what it is on an Xbox controller. You'll have to forgive me. But anyways, basically, as soon as that button is pressed, we check if we're in skill stance. If we're not, we go through and pass along the instruction. If we are, though, we check if we're using Lance, because I don't want to initialize the... hope this isn't too loud. Sorry, I don't want to keep continually initializing the command if we're already channeling the ability. And then we execute. That's basically the input event. From there, I have a print string. Kind of don't need that anymore, to be honest. We can get rid of it. But we immediately set the character to is attacking. How the character parent is set up is that when you are attacking, you can't input any movement inputs, basically. So your character is sort of locked into position. That will probably be adjusted a little bit in the future. We'll probably have like a lock for is movement enabled, because if we are attacking, in some cases you may want to reorient yourself for the next attack. For instance, if you want to adjust yourself left or right depending on which way the enemy is moving, or I think from a player perspective you want to offer that. It's not totally realistic, but I think it allows for greater playability. But for the time being, that's set up there. Then we begin our animation montage for the Lance start. So the skills animations are actually set up into three. We have our start animation here. Now let's pull this up. We have our start, our loop, right, and our end. So it's not really complex. Pretty basic setup. As soon as we call animation start, we set a delay, and then once that delay is done, we destroy the effects that have been proccing for the charge. This event is called from an animation notify. Basically, if we go look at start, halfway through here, there is an animation notify for, if I look at the, excuse me, if we go to look at the montage, halfway through the animation, here we are. We begin charge animation notify. This calls this event here, and right to simulate the effects of charging, we have a sound effect. We have Maya's voice proc sound effect. We set the is Lance charging on. So once, and this is the check we make earlier on the input, so that we don't continually input constantly. And then we spawn some effects for the charging. I have sort of a particle system made for charging, right? So it starts small and gets bigger, kind of thing. From there, that's the end of that execution. But basically, as soon as the animation is done playing, we destroy that effect, and then we just basically instantly check for is our input being pressed. So up here, you may have noticed on pressed and on release of our triangle button, we are setting if the input is pressed or if it's not pressed. So we can quickly check what's the player's intent. Are they trying to use a skill? Have they decided to change have they changed their mind? Do they not want to use it anymore? And we can go accordingly, basically. It's pretty simple. I'm just gonna move this down, and I want to begin commenting this out. Oops. Okay. Yeah, let's move this over here. Basically, we're gonna type in lens charge start called from animation blueprint. Hey Julio, how's it going on a Monday? We're just covering. I'm sort of updating on part 3, the setup for the skill. It's pretty much done. As you're aware of our development update videos, obviously, but for anyone who's just tuning in, I'm sort of explaining the process on how this was set up, and at the same time cleaning it up. I thought it was a good opportunity to do both. Checks for player input. Whoops. Set damage is here. Right, so sets the damage of our attack. That's actually, it's okay. Let's plug it in for now. This is a macro. If we go inside of here, it basically creates a variable damage so that it's not always consistent. It's a little bit dynamic. That's something from a game design perspective we're still deciding on and deciding how we want to implement and use. But for the time being, I'm just going to hook it up as so. Yep, here we set damage. So basically, we check for player input. If true, if the player wants to input, we set damage. Oh, whoops. I hit the wrong key. Okay. And basically, if this is false, if false, ends execution. Oh, nice. And to be honest, all of this is setting up our sound effects and VFX. Probably lower this down a little bit. Alrighty. Yeah, just copy this comment over. Basically here, we're setting up sound effects and VFX. It's pretty simple. Here we call our sound effect for our splash sort of like the trigger, if you will, of the ability starting. Then we created a beam emitter, but we don't actually instruct anything on it here. We just create it and set it to a variable. that I've called spawned particle system. We then create a projectile emitter for that plays during the duration of the skill, sort of like the spiraling center that you see. So it's sort of, this is what spawns in front of the character. It's actually based off of our thruster particle, but it's just a little bit more modified. And then we begin some more sound effects, and we play our aim range trace. So that's basically where the magic happens, I would guess you could say. Inside this function, we basically are tracing for... We are tracing on... Let me find the amount. Okay, so every 0.25 seconds. It used to be on a world delta, but I thought it was kind of unnecessary. But we loop this function every 0.025 seconds. And inside of here, let's see how we can organize this, make it nice and neat. Basically, the first thing we're doing is creating trace from Maya's hand to player's target. And we have our get hand location, and we have our follow camera, location and forward vector. And between some math on both of those, all of those vectors, we're basically able to get a start location and end location for our trace. And we trace for world static, dynamic, pawn, and destructible. I don't think we need to check for anything else, at least not at this point. But we can always add to this array and choose another another type of object. So let's move that in here. Try to find a way to do this without being as messy as possible, so it's as clear and easy to read, which can be a challenge sometimes. Yeah, maybe something like this is easy to read. I can only hope. And from here we can just drop that here. Sure. This doesn't have to be as long. Okay, let's move all this stuff over. Actually, here it's pretty simple. We are setting beam source and endpoint. So that particle we created earlier and promoted to a variable, we're basically setting the start and end point of those and updating them in real time. This here is actually an offset, so we don't spawn inside of our hand, we spawn a little bit in front of our hand socket. And same with this here. I wonder if maybe this should be like that. I don't know. This instruction here offsets the hit effects towards the player. Basically, the effects were, when we're spawning our hit effects, right here, our water explosion, when we spawn that at the impact point directly, it clips into the geometry, because it's like an effect that grows outwards. So we offset that a little bit towards the player, so at least when you're aiming at something on the same plane as the character in terms of perspective, those effects aren't clipping into geometry. It doesn't have to be. And I think the effects are happening so fast and it's so flashy that you don't really notice that it's a little bit off the wall. Anyways, so we're almost done cleaning this up. Right. So here, what are we checking for? We are checking if object is hit. Let's lower this down, try to keep it in line. Okay. So, if true, if true, now we spawn water explosion effects. And I have to adjust the scale a little bit, because by default I thought it was a bit too large. And we were doing a camera shake, but it was kind of too much. So I'm actually going to get rid of that. And here, apply damage to hit actor. That is a little critical. To keep it consistent with our current commenting scheme, we'll just make it red. And we'll grab these two down. Yep, basically we get the set damage that we want to send for that attack. And, you know, our player controller as the event instigator. It bothers me. Whatever, yeah, stick it up here. And after that, we just call our sound effect. I'm not gonna comment that, I think that's pretty obvious. Gonna make this nice and neat. And that's what's happening inside of our looping function. If we hop back outside to the event graph, we can see here the sound effect that we call. I put a delay here because the sound effect is actually going to be called. Without this, the sound effect gets called more than it's quicker than it can finish. So you basically get this really distorted kind of effect, which probably isn't good. It almost sounds like the sound you get when your computer crashes or something. So that delay allows the sounds to register in a better way. We'll just put that here, I guess. And Lance channel end. So this is called from, let's double click and hop to where we call that from. Oh, no, sorry. You double click the function to jump to the event. Lance channel end is called from our skill stance. And basically, when we release, we check if we're in Lance, and if we are, we call our event. And we can double click the function to hop back to the event. And here we are. And when that happens, we play a sound effect. We turn off all variables that are required. You know, things like attack and, you know, is Lance, is attacking, those all get called to false. We play our animation for Lance end. and we clear our function. This is important because we don't need that to be looping anymore. If we didn't end this, the beam particles would still be firing when our character's walking around. So that's an important one to call. And then we destroy and stop some of our existing effects. One of which is our initial looping sound effect that we created up here for the water. And the other one, and the rest of them are just particle effects. So, you know, things like the water charge. That's actually already called off, but it's sort of there as just sort of like an extra measure. I don't think it needs to be plugged in. It should already be destroyed no matter what branch we take. But things like the, projectile emitter, those need to be destroyed as well because we don't need them playing. We can now move this up here to be a little tighter. And we can probably just grab this. End length. And that is pretty much everything that's, driving the ability, the skill. We do have, so the next setup is to set up our conditions and our resource costs, which we can do that on stream. That should be no problem. I'm going to, let's see here. I'm just going to save and compile real quick. Let's confirm everything is working. This item stash is something that we're converting to our new gamepad control scheme. So a lot of our widgets were previously driven by mouse only, and this is Unreal just reminding me that, hey, this isn't working with your current setup. So that's sort of on my to-do list, really, but it should be fine. That shouldn't affect anything we're doing here. Okay. Yeah. The sound effect timing could be a little bit better, but I think it's serviceable. Super strong ability. The next thing we want to do is make it cost this blue gauge we see here. Oh, that was a little loud. Anyways, we want to cost this blue resource, sort of like our water points. So let's close out what we don't need. And we can set up our conditions as well as our... to be honest, the conditions need to be called from the input. It doesn't really make sense to have them out here. Sort of how we have... Lance execute here, we should have some conditions that drive that. So maybe we want to have, whoa, why didn't that combine work? Come on, there we go. Yeah, we have Lance execute. This is actually incorrect. The end is separate. At one point it was all based on a toggle of the same input. But anyways, we have our conditions here. We definitely want to make sure we're not... Yeah, we can probably set it up to be like this, and basically only if all of these are true, we should be up here. Or whoops. Okay, so this top node here is usually reserved for is the skill unlocked, which for the time being, I just leave that boolean empty, and we set up we just leave it sorry, we set up that boolean, we leave the node input empty, but we check it true, because we want our skill to work right now for our, development purposes. And the bottom one is for resources, which previously I have been leaving checked true, but that should actually be checked here. And right here is where we check our abilities, or our resources. So we have two. We have our Xenos power and our water points. If we jump to our HUD, just for a quick explanation, for anyone who may not be familiar with our setup, our HUD, this circular gauge here is your Xenos gauge, sort of like, you can think of this as like what Maya has available to her, like her, you can call it whatever you want, like magic points, like that sort of idea. And these here are additional ammo canteens that serve as like, well, they're water canteens, but for her, you can think of them as sort of like extra ammo that she can have on her. It's not really part of her, her body's base level of ability power, but it's like expansion as you proceed through the game. But because of that distinction, I usually like to set up these skills one at a time, making sure that it works with the base Xenos power first, and then we go to set up the integration of water power, or water points, excuse me. So right now, let's just do a condition. We probably want to set up like this for the sake of initial. We want our Xenos power to be not equal to 1, but definitely greater than 0.3, like 1 being 100%. So let's create a greater than or equal to. I will just say that, 30, like a third. As long as she has more than a third of her base level water, we can use that ability. I'm just going to delete this right now, drop this down here. And now this condition should be gating for yeah, that looks good. That looks readable, right? Okay. So let's save and we won't compile it just yet because we do want to set up the other end of this, the cost of the ability. So to start, let's just grab Surf, because it's gonna have a similar setup in terms of the ability's cost structure. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, the Maya is pretty OP, Julio. To be honest, that's kind of like a later game ability. If you look at it, any of the images or videos of our skill tree setup, you'll see that's kind of like a tier 3 skill, kind of late in the game when you're supposed to be feeling like a real badass. But it should be noted that that's a high cost ability. It will deplete your resources. You're basically, for badassery, if you will, you're trading your resources for their life at a very high rate. Right? It doesn't cost you much time, but it's very expensive, but you can basically delete people. Well, not people, monsters, right? Your kind of typical enemies, your grunts, those kind of goons, those kind of enemies. Not the tough guys, of course, but your average Joe type enemies, I guess. They would be very quick to kill. They'd have a quick time to kill time with that ability. Okay, so resource cost, let's name this appropriately. We'll call it Lance. I don't love the name Lance for this ability, mainly because our other character's name's Vance, and it's kind of confusing, it's kind of weird. So I'm open to suggestions and comments, so if you guys have any cool ideas for a name for this ability, post it below, and then, who knows, we might end up using it. Okay, so right here we want to set up our cost. So Xenos power degen. And we're checking. Interesting. Okay, so let's jump to here. Zeus Power Degen is calling an event. Called by scale, that's correct. Set play rate 0.5. Oh, Zeus Power timeline. Looks like that'll work just fine. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. Let's get back to our blueprint here. So this is being called. This is calling our water points. This may have to be called somewhere else. It's regarding our water points, so we don't necessarily need to hook this up right now. Let's set up the Xenos Power resource first. And when we end our ability, I believe, we can hook this up right here. We stop and begin regen. One thing we do have to do. Now that we have this set up, we should, let's see here, we definitely should, in our range trace for Lance, we should set up a check, like a resource check. Basically, is, you know, Xenos Power, whoops. You know, we're not looking for a boolean. Xenos Power. So let's get this and check if it is greater than 0. Because if it's not, excuse me, let's check if it's not greater than 0. That way, if we're not greater than 0, and that's true, we can continue using our ability. But if it's false, we should call, we should call and Lance, and that should call this function here, and force us out. But over here, this is going to cause sort of like a loop, because you're going to be forced out of Lance, but you're still holding down the L2 button. And when that happens, yeah, you'll be holding down the L2 button, but you'll be forced out from here. We still need to call this, and set up some kind of gate, I want to say. It may just end up being a branch. It could be that simple. let's see what happens, just so I'm certain. I don't want to try and program against something that I don't fully understand, so we'll just compile, jump into game, and see how that's affecting our Xenos power, and also how that's affecting the skill stance. Sure. So, we get in here. Interesting. Very interesting. We are immediately forced out. And we're still in skill stance, but we're not getting stuck. I thought what would happen was that we would be sort of inverted. We'd be outside of skill stance, but holding L2, and then as soon as we let go, we'd be back in skill stance. But it looks like it's being maintained. But I think I goofed with my instruction here. Basically, I think what we want to use is equal to 0, so that if we're greater than that, if we're not equal to 0, we're perfect, right? But if we are equal to 0, we have to end this channel. This is giving me a... Oh gosh, where are we? Come on, come on. There we go. Let's just shove this guy over here, and we can bring this up, make it a little neater. Yeah, it's giving me this note because if you have a function with, like, you always have this input, but if you have an output in your function, Unreal doesn't like having execution pins not leading to them. It's sort of like a helpful reminder in case you're trying to execute things in sequence. For this case, we don't really need it to be, but just to make Unreal happy, we'll plug it in. Now then, we should have a result more close to what we want. Oh, looks pretty good. Right. Our energy is depleting. And, you know, we're forced out of the skill. I think that's as elaborate as we need it to be in terms of getting our Xenos power to work as far as cost goes. Now though, what is a little more complex is the water points. Based on the high region of the Xenos power, we almost always know, unless there's some adverse effect where the player's been debuffed and they don't have Xenos power, you know, because of a status ailment or something like that. Maya's almost always gonna have Xenos power over water points, just because it recharges on its own and at a pretty high rate. So it's almost always safe to call this, you know, Xenos power degen, but the water points are sort of a it's not as simple. of a case, because you may have, if you're just starting the game, you won't have any canteens, and if at the end of the game, you'll have 4, which is a considerable amount of water points. But it needs to be treated a little differently. Up here, we're basically, how does surf work? Start/end. So we call channel water points, and inside of here, we basically are checking if water points are less than 0, or sorry, are greater than 0. If that's true, we are decrementing them and updating the HUD until they equal 0. And when they do, we are ending this loop, and we end channel skill, which puts us where? Where does this call? It calls... very interesting. End channel surf. So, basically, this is being set up as sort of like a decision tree almost. Hydro pump. Oh, it's more like Lance, for now anyways. We'll call it water Lance. And we will grab that variable from our skill handlers. Whoops. Grab this like that. Nothing fancy. And we will call, if that's true, and Lance. Oh, look, this is very interesting how I set this up about 2 weeks ago. Basically, we are, degenning our power. Maya's almost always starting with using water points first. Sorry, Xenos points. So we're reversing whatever her current, Xenos points are. And based on that, as soon as... we're basically always checking, actually. If water points are... oh no, this is uncompleted. Excuse me. So once it equals 0, we check if, time is going forwards or backwards, if we're increasing or decreasing. If we're decreasing Xenos points, then we check if we have any water points, and if we do, we call our channel water point function. When that expires, whatever we have remaining, we check and execute the appropriate end of the skill, if it's Lance or Surf in this case, because those are our 2 channeling abilities right now. So I want to say that can work just fine. We might have to test and see. If we have no Xenos power, I guess, yeah, this is a good backup. We just call this immediately. Set function, set timer by function name. Let's test this out. Before I compile, I just want to make sure, yeah, we have a water point regen actor here. Right, so what that actor does is, one of Maya's other abilities is called Siphon, which basically allows her to pull water from the environment to kind of recharge her resources, right? Refilling her canteens, restoring her Xenos power, but I mean, that kind of refills passively. It's not really an issue unless it's a special situation. But, for example, right now for, debug or development purposes, I have set up a, hotkey to give some canteens. But you can see it's kind of empty right now. Oh, that's loud. Super loud. I need to adjust the volume of that. But anyways, with the canteen, let's go over 2. We can use this ability once we're in range. Excuse me. And yeah, you can refill your resources to full based on environmental points, like water points, or whatever you want to call them. But now let's test how that works with with the Lance ability. So, we're decreasing our Xenos power, and we stop, and we we empty out all of our abilities, or all of our water points. Not exactly what we want. So, what we need here is it's actually a simple fix. Instead of ending here, we actually need to do another check. And it's basically check her water points. Actually, we don't even have to do that, to be honest, because there's a check for this when we're channeling. So we can kind of this is interesting, and maybe I believe we don't even need to do a check inside the looping function, which, if that's the case, is that's actually pretty cool. We'll see though. I believe the same check happens automatically once our Xenos power is 0 because of that degen function. So let's see. All we need is 1 canteen, and let's regen, and let's fire. Yep! That works as far as resources go. How neat. How neat is that? Okay, so our resource system is working with this ability now. Pretty much perfectly. I do want to increase the cost a little bit, as far as Xenos power goes. And like things like resource cost and all that will be fine-tuned later on. But just for initial feel, I think I want to increase its cost. So we have this ability here. Let's hop to the event called by skill. So we have our play rate. I think the simplest way to do this would be to select, and this is going to get a little, this could get a little muddy. Once you have a lot of abilities, right? Right now we could just simply, use his surfing. Whoops. We could get this and plug it in here. And once this updates and reconfigures, so if we're surfing, what do we say? 0.05. But if we're not surfing, right now, if we're not surfing, that means exactly, well, the only other option is that it's the water lance, which you probably want to have maybe, last a fraction of the time. So we would increase the cost or the play rate. And this is fine, but as we have more and more skills for channeling, hopefully we don't have too many, we would have to nest this, and then you would have, if we're not surfing, let's check for something else. Kind of similar to, actually, it's the exact same kind of logic that we have here. So this could be set up on, like, I don't know, maybe an enumerator, but then I feel like, why are we creating variables if we already have variables? And I'm not sure what would be more expensive from a system resource perspective. So I think we'll just leave it as is. But that, you know, aside from thinking ahead and what problems may incur, for the time being, this works perfectly. Oh, it should. We'll just double check that resource. It should be exponentially quicker in terms of our resource depletion. So, oh, did I not hit play? My mistake. Okay. Character select. I want to update that widget, but it's not really critical. So let's see this cost. Okay, so it's actually the opposite of what I want. Super long-lasting. It's like just delete bosses with that. It's too powerful. Let's see here. You know what? Let's just get the same logic. Right here. Instead of using a select, let's apply different play rates based on what we're actually using. So essentially we have a setup like this. And the play rate would be, for surf, I believe we said 0.05, and that's not 2. 0.3. Let us see. Compile and save. Might need a little bit of a bigger play space to test surf. It just might be a bit too small and will fall off the edge of the land. Because surf is purposefully a little bit difficult to control because you're moving at such a high speed. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, we're gonna fall off the edge for sure. Trying to go as slow as possible. Okay. Yeah, that is way too slow. Let's try 0.5 and... Because what's the time on this? It's actually 2 seconds, right? So maybe we want, to be honest, for Lance, we probably want like 1 second, and maybe a little bit more. For this, 4 seconds. Okay, let's save and compile and test those out. And let's give us a bit more floor space here. Let's sort of, give us a bigger playground. So, yeah, that feels okay. And if we recharge, I wonder if I just broke something. Let's see. No, it works. Okay, so what's the deal? Yeah, super high power ability, super quick. And if we, max out some canteens, grab some water points. Whoops. Oh, that's sort of an issue, but we can update that later. Want to prevent input during that ability. Anyhow, let's... It's actually quite fun to do those target practices. Okay, maybe I'm having too much fun. Anyways, that's awesome that it's working. Let's save the changes to this level, and I want to say that we're good to go. This, honestly, we probably should tie this to this. It just makes sense to do it that way. But we'll leave it for now. Oh my god, you have... Of course you should do it that way. Then you can just use the same function and you're changing the instruction. Oh my god, okay. Over here, though, you need to branch because you're calling a different event. But here, obviously, we can do this and, apply that instruction to the input. So, yeah, it says new rate. Yeah, play rate. What's the name of the timer? Xenos Power Timeline. So Xenos Power play rate. Sometimes it's like so obvious. Like, why wouldn't you do that from the beginning? Anyways, so now over here we can actually call this on 0.5 for surf and sorry, 1.5. Maybe 1.3. Whoops. Man, didn't mean to double click. That was an accident. Actually, let me comment this. I just noticed it. This was set up based off of stats and how they affect your regeneration. I'm just going to type needs adjustment stat to... Okay. And let's just make that black so it stands out. Anyhow, so surf was 0.5, this was 1.5, and then, man, sometimes I don't know how I come to certain conclusions. Anyways, right here, the last thing we want to do on our skill is create the skill growth function. Nothing too fancy. It's basically they all use the same logic, but they're called differently depending on the use case. So surf, obviously no, this is not surf, this is water lance. And we have our skill growth handlers. We pretty much just need to duplicate this and make one for a water lance. And let's see here. Yeah, they're called from a custom event, but let's just replace all of these. And we're going to have to get it and split the structure pin and sort of replace them as they are. Excuse me. This pin, whoa, what's going on? Yep, I'm trying to use the control, hold control and click on a node to drag and move it. Yeah, that's working how it should now. Okay. And this can cause our skill to grow. Now, the actual tracking of the ability requires a data table, which we don't have for all of our abilities at this point. I set up the functionality so that it does work. We just need to create data tables with the hard stats of these abilities, and then when we level up, we actually just, water lance. Skill growth siphon. Oh, that's not right at all. We want to set this. Sort of like that. Yeah, let's just replace this with surf, because that's the skill we're trying to grow, right, in this function. Just want to make sure crash is set up to work properly. No, crash is setting up to work with stream, which is the opposite. Yeah, all of these, the latest skills I've been doing, surf, crash, stream, in all of those cases, we haven't set up the data tables for their evolution yet, to track growth and make them more powerful, adjust resource costs, things like that. But the logic is already in the game and it's working. I'm just sort of setting up the infrastructure. For the case of Lance, we want to call this basically probably in our aim trace we want to do a check at the end, and we're probably going to check if we're hitting an enemy, right, an enemy pawn, and if we are, then we'll call a custom event for tracking experience of that skill's growth. Which would be the event that is right here, that sets all of this into motion. But for the time being, we're functional, we're happy. Let's grab this, because I like this notify. we should make one up here as well. Right? Because it's true, we need the datasheet. And same for us over here. Oh man, all of this talking is hurting my throat. I'm going to save and compile, and I will be right back. Just gonna use the washroom. This coffee has, as per usual on the stream, I guess, at the halfway point, it's gonna have to force me to use the washroom. I'll be right back, guys. Alrighty, guys. Let's see here. Now then, where are we? Yep, we have our ability working. I don't think there's anything else to do on it at the moment anyways. If we did want to demo the growth and how it works for other abilities, the older skills, wrong tab, excuse me, the older skills such as Stream, I think Stream, Siphon, and Wave all have the logic set up for growth. But for example, if we use this ability... Oh, that was super loud. I have to lower that. But anyways, those abilities, if we go back to our skill tab, yeah, they're set up to track growth, right? 10%, right? So you keep using it, it grows to level 2, etc., etc. Anywho, let's get back to, I think the current task right now is to sort of update our menus and interfaces across the board for gamepad. Right now we're sort of working from the top down. We started with the player select. We didn't update the visuals of that, but the cosmetics come sort of secondary. But we did the pause menu, which now works with our gamepad. The next thing I want to do is sort of update some of our interactive actors, excuse me, things like our item stash, and shops, right? Shops, item stash, the wardrobe actor to change outfits. But also, one thing I do want to update, it's kind of been bugging me, is if we go to our items, sorry, not pickups, our inventory items, we have these different kinds of actors. For example, we have, you know, health, like restoratives, we have costumes, we also have, I believe this class is materials, like pretty much every case, or sorry, there's different classes, and each class is different color. You know, Regna Eye, treasures. So for example, anyways, we pick these up. We're using color to sort of define what item class a pickup is. So if you see a yellow item, without knowing what it is, I mean, how could you? You know that, oh, it's a treasure type of item, right? Or it's restorative. But you can see right now, we have this pickup, notify, but it's really bland. Like, it's obviously really bland. It's not pleasing to look at. But also, I would like to sort of color code that based on the item type. If you come in here, we have, you know, these item types that we picked up, and they're color coded and they can be sorted by that type. But anyways, yeah, we need to update that pickup for the items because they're just so bland. So let's do that a little bit. One thing I did notice is that the parent of these actors, if we go to details, there's default variables here that actually need to be deleted. These are really old. They're from an old setup of our inventory, and like we see we have these different types, but we don't use this anymore. Like, is refinable, is Ragna part, is that doesn't matter because we're using we're getting our item type already. So none of these are being used. Our get is equipment is being used. So let's find out where it's being used. It's being used here. Well, we could very easily use the exact same type of logic, and then drive a, you know, update visuals on the character later. That is something I want to. We can probably do that afterwards, but just to get rid of these old booleans that are just sitting here taking up space, not even being used. Let's grab that same logic from our construction script. We're using basically S item data. So if we come here, and instead of checking is equipment, we actually already have a way to check. We can grab our S item data, rake it to get the different classes and variables that it is comprised of. And right here we have item type. If we pull out from here, we can check is equal to and get a Boolean output. And we can basically check for, oh, is it equal to, you know, hunting tools, and then we can drive a visual update. In the case of is equipment, it would actually be kind of like a special case. We'd probably use item name and check against a small list of those, basically. It wouldn't be class-based, it'd be a special sort of use case. But anyhow, we can actually I wonder if we delete that pin, can we just come back to this after? Like you saw earlier in the stream, where I have a hotkey, these square bracket buttons on my keyboard. They are sort of set up to toggle Maya's canteen count, but that should really be toggled by the amount of canteens she has in her inventory. So that needs to be set up to be driven by this update her visuals on her character. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to first clean this up and set up our pickup text. So I'll come to Item Master. Now these aren't being used anywhere. We should be able to delete them without any issues. Some of our old item actors will have conflicts, but they actually need to be deleted, or they're not being used anymore. They've all been replaced by our new item types. Okay, so we'll save here, and we don't need to go here. We need to go to, we can close this for now. We do need to go to our, not player select, interactions. Let's see. It might be on HUD actually, because it is a pickup text. Let's look at this widget. Oh, nice and ugly, right? Okay. So our item creates widget pickup text. So right here, when we pick up our item, we get our pickup text. And we add it to viewport, and we set the text on it. That's kind of critical. We'll move that over here. That's part of all of that. Oh, come on. Bring that rewrote node with you. Okay. Cool. Now we want to update this. Okay, so let's see. How do we want to update it? Right now, it just, this is the only instruction here. On construct, we play an animation, and we delay until that animation's done, I believe, and then we remove it from screen. So it's a very, very simple widget. If we go to the designer, and we see that animation, we can see, oh, it does run for 1.5 seconds, and it starts off invisible, and it kind of appears, slides into frame, holds for about 0.2 seconds, and scrolls up and fades away. Maybe we should have a little bit, keep the opacity at 1 until here. I think that's better, and then it fades out over that 0.5 seconds at the end. So that just remains readable a little bit longer. But these colors are terrible. And why is it blue? Like, why is that? That's why it's discolored. I was wondering why we set it to be so awkward. Anyways, we don't want to tint it anything. Content, color, and display. We want to just keep it white and fade it out. That seems about right. Now then, yeah, it's okay. If we go to the border, oh, that is it. Oh, there's something else that's still wrong, because this white here, and inside the animation it's super dark. Probably brush color. Yep. That would do it. Why do we need to animate the brush color? The brush color should actually be set based on the item type, because similar to how the mesh of the item pickup changes color, we want to keep that consistent with the item pickup notify. It's sort of trying to we're sort of trying to make use of color as a signifier, so it's as clear as possible as to what item type this is, and keep it consistent. Okay, so I think we can delete this. And I deleted it, and now the default values are held. Wonderful. Let's undo. Let's come right to this key that's set here, and let's set all of this to 1. That's normal. And why opacity is being set on both, I don't know. Oh, that's why. Wow, okay. So if we get rid of content, sorry, this is a really old widget, so I'm kind of trying to reteach myself as to why things are this way. You know, why were they done this way? Why not? Or why it seems more logical to me now. Let's shove this over. Let's set this at 0. Okay, I see it. I understand. I wonder though, why are we using the panel slot? We should be using just like the defined transform and the defined visibility, the brush color. The brush color's there. Here's what we're gonna have to do. Let's delete that. From here. So 0.55. We are going to take our transform and set a key on both. Here we're going to move, whoops, not on the y-axis, on the x-axis. We're going to move it off screen so that we basically have the same result as before. Let's use 560. So we slide in, hold, set another 2 keys at 0, and then we slide this guy up. Yeah, let's move it 300 units up, that's fine. Or 330. We can always adjust them. Okay. Now that we're here, let's adjust this widget pickup text to be more similar to the look of our inventory button. So we have our item menu, inventory button. So, whoops, wrong inventory button. There we go. This guy right here. I am going to move this off screen so I can use it as a reference. And we'll just work in this space here. We may also want to look at the setup of our quest slots. I might have a better aesthetic. Where's that supposed to look like a list of items? We may want to make use of effect here. So I'll move both of those off as references. And we will come here. So we have our canvas panel and a border. Pick up notify border, that's fine. We then want to create a horizontal box. So let's wrap this with a horizontal box. Beautiful. The padding might be a little large. Typically the padding is always like 4 and 2. But it's a smaller widget, so let's interesting. Let's just set it up at about 4. The background texture, though, I believe we can update to make it look a little bit more like a button, as opposed to just a flat texture. So we'll use this quest button texture. And let's slap it on here. So now it has some lighting, you know, some details. And we probably want to draw it as a box, I believe. Is that right? Draw it as a box, maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, strangely, that's the texture. How do you want me to align? Just looking at my settings here, it's actually set up. It's actually set up like this, interestingly enough. A little strange, but you know, I think we can move on. That should be fine. Okay, so next, inside the horizontal box, we should have a spacer. We probably need a spacer, to be honest. What we do want is a icon. I can actually copy and paste. Okay, well, it's probably not ideal or necessary, but it's a very simple widget. There's not much to overwrite. What we can do is just overwrite this. If we delete our horizontal box and paste in the one from our item menu, we actually get a pretty useful item name. So that's a bit too large. Let's see here. If we size to content, whoops, not 1. We want to size at 28, I was thinking. Can we keep it at 36? No, I think 28 would probably look better. We don't need the item quantity. But what we could use is to expand this on the x-axis. Interesting. We need to apply a size box if we want to adjust all of these sort of in a more dynamic fashion. with the size box on and the border, its border being set to size to content, we can make a great use of a size box. It's one of my favorite items or containers from the palette that you have available. Yeah, we sort of just want to set up like this. The item name needs to be set to a pickup text, and the icon, well, it's kind of, I want to say simple, but let's save. Oh, I have to check it out. So let me ask you that first. Okay, so we have our variables sort of set here. We have an icon and a pickup text. Previously, from the item master, we were creating this widget and assigning these variables. So from here, I believe we should be able to just pull out our get icon. Well, actually, we want to set it. So we'll pull this out, and these are the only two variables we have to set at the moment. Let's just reroute this. Okay. And the asset we want to set it to, well, really simply, we want to get our item icon and dump that in here. Oh, and it doesn't work. It's not a 2D texture reference. So can we break this? Sorry, make this. Interesting. Okay, so we need to get that as a 2D reference, which shouldn't be too hard. I believe on construct we can grab this, set brush. Whoops. I just want to set brush from texture. And well, you know what? We're creating this and then setting the reference to it. I think this is going to be a bound function. I typically like to avoid these, but I think in this case it's okay. The function isn't going to last too long. So let's pull this out here and apply it as a basically we just want to make brush from texture and create a texture asset. The icon itself does need to be a variable anymore, so we can hide that. Same with this. The text block doesn't have to be a variable either because we're setting it with a variable already. But we can promote this to a variable and call this icon texture. Width and height should be get X and we'll get Y, I believe. Actually, you know what? I think we don't want to get that. We just want to use 128 by 64. Which you should be able to use get size, but I believe because we're using size to content, it could scale up a box and not get the result we want. Real quick, I guess I'll compile. Just to test, I want to scale these and see. Yeah, right, it would do this, which is not what we want at all. So let's put this back to 64, 128. Our background here, we don't need tiling. And by turning off tiling, we get a proper sort of deformation. of our slot button. Okay, now save, compile, and back on our item master. Well, yeah, we deleted that variable, right? But we can still use a 0 node and use our icon texture. Well, we want to set this. That is the right name we created, right? Yeah, icon texture. That's cool. Let's set that. And now this will be able to dump into our item icon. Beautiful. And I don't know if this is necessary, but the order of execution, we probably, I want to say you probably want to set the execution order so that our variables are being set before we're displaying the widget on screen. I believe all this happens instantly, so it's almost, I want to say it doesn't make a difference, but in the case that I'm wrong, and it does make a difference, there may be instances, possibly, where for a split second you see nothing until we assign that variable. Okay, let's save and compile, and let's test this out, because I believe it should be working here. We have our name, it's bound to that variable, and we have our item icon bound to our function. Let's rename this get icon texture. Cool. Save and compile, and let's hop into our level here. Oh, let's grab Vance. I haven't grabbed him in a while. Okay, so pick this up. Strangely, it doesn't pick up. So we broke something at some point. Just for a sanity check, let's... Yeah, that's good. If they're both not working, then I can feel a bit better. So let's see, we're adding this to inventory. Oh, interesting. Let me open this up and take a look at the blueprint. Whoa! Well, that's lovely. Okay, let's see. Let's try to see if we can help Epic by filling out this crash report. Try to open a child actor of an item class. We have it just did. Well, let's send and restart. Oh, hey, Kalarla. How's it going? How are you doing on this Monday? Get some water while my Unreal reopens. Yeah, let's try and restore this. Sometimes I notice that it tries to restore and then fails. Okay, well, we're back in the editor. Let's go back to our test level. Hop in here. Oh, what's up, Kalarla? Just saw your comment now. So your game. Yes, this is our game. What is going on? Okay, everything's working as we intended. What's going on with that widget? Yeah, we want to fix that. Let's hop over and take a look at the animation. And let's actually open this up. There's no reason it should crash. It looks like it's been updated. And if we hop to our dynamic HUD, pickup text. Here we are. Okay, so our weird pickup text. I shouldn't say weird. I appreciate and love my pickup text. Let's lower the starting position a little bit. Minus 300 might be a good amount. And if we look at the animation, we come in. That's so weird. Anyways, let's see what's going on with the transform here. So, positive 560, I move out to a location of 0. So we just have to adjust the curves. Maybe I can open this up a little bit. We want to yeah, that will look good. Okay. And if we look at this one here, yeah, we want this to be linear. It used to be linear, but this one to be auto, and now we should be able to get the result we want. I actually don't know. It might just be a little too, I know I didn't want to, I want to have a nice hold, but maybe it's better to have a whoops. Sorry, these should be like this, and this should be auto. Can I break this tangent? Something kind of like that. Might feel a little better. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's go back and key to here, and apply a value of 0. Key that. So the hold isn't too long. Let's apply a linear and auto tangent. Yeah, keep it like this. Excuse me. Alright, so our animation runtime is 1.55. And in our event graph, we sort of delay 1.55. And for some reason, this should have... I don't know how, unless I deleted it by mistake and I didn't notice. But we should have a remove from parent here. We don't want this to be on screen forever. Definitely not. It's just like a little notification. Whoops. Let's hop back over here. So, we have our transition and our fade outs, but we don't have the actual content disappearing, which is not a good look. So instead of pickup text border, let's actually use our brush color and let's delete this instruction. So there's nothing there. Inside of here, I wonder if content color and opacity and brush color and opacity. Do we have to animate both? I guess that would be the easiest way. Like there's no way to like, excuse me, automate it, but you know what, it should be fine. Let's undo that so we keep our disappearing text, and probably for the, so we could, let's just, instead of adding another item here for the horizontal box and everything inside of it, we should just be able to add another track for our content. And we'll just animate that opacity on that same channel. Let's turn off curves. Right here, let's key our opacity again, so it's maintained, and probably right at the end it should be 0, so that we have a nice, appears and fades away. I really hate how it looks, if I'm gonna be honest. It's kind of terrible. When is the brush color of this fading away? From here to here we have, maybe that's why. If we delete it, and we delete this here, okay, that's a more natural disappearance across all elements. You know what, I wonder if it's better to have it visible for longer. That way we can actually see what the item is for longer. I mean, this is only on screen for an instant, and it disappears. That might be a better result for us. the last thing we should do is... Okay, so that animation should be more than adequate. Let's apply a little bit of shadow color to this. Let's make the shadows visible. 0.66. Whoops. Oh, Jesus. 0.66 should be fine. And let's offset this by 2 and 2. So that's a little easier to read. And pick up border text. This we can make a variable. And we should set color. Set brush color to, let's just make it blue. Make sure that's working the way I want it to. Sorry, Kalarla, just saw your comment now. Do I want to test your skill game? Sure. Yeah, I'd love to see your game. Paste it in the comments. It's always fun to see other developers' work. It's actually a really cool part about social media, is seeing all the other really cool indie game dev projects that are going on. Okay, so we're not getting the colors we want from this. You know, setup, pickup border, content color, brush color. I assumed it would look like this by applying our brush color on construct. We could, the easiest way would be to just bind it. Yeah, let's do that. Let's call this a set border brush color based on item type. We are, however, going to need to add a variable to this called item type. This is gonna be a, by default, miscellaneous, and basically gonna have to select based on this. So we can set our colors after. Right now, let's just apply this as red. I want to make sure this is working. It should work. There's no reason it shouldn't. The pickup border does have a binding, so it should work perfectly, but it should have worked here too. I don't know why. But anyways, let's compile and test this. Okay, so it's not. Something's going on. And I know exactly what it is. It's our animation. There are keys on our color, but that's fine. We can delete this. Let's go here, function, remove. It is a variable. So let's set this content to, whoops, excuse me, set brush color. Oh no, we just want brush color. That's all we need. We'll still use our item type, but yeah, let's just make this green to test. Hop into our designer, check our animation. So if we look at brush color, we actually want this to be interesting. Hold on. Maybe I want to see if we can adjust that tint value. Set brush from texture. If we break this, or if we make it rather, can we get a tint? Yes, we can. Beautiful. Okay, so let's split, or let's make a slate color out of here. Okay, so we don't have to adjust our animation because we do want to, I think, keep that white because it is driving our opacity in terms of animation, but the tint value should get us exactly where we need to. In terms of image, we're setting that on a function, so we can leave this as is. Let's put none. Should be fine. Well, maybe that's wrong, because we have our brush set on quest button 700 by 820. Let's go with image, quest button 700 by, what was it? What was the size of that? 128. Okay. So that should be fine. Now it should be a pink tinted version of that color once we pick these up. Still not. What's going on here? Use specified color. If we, oh my gosh, of course it's not. I'm such a bogus goof. Obviously it's not, because we're trying to do that after we delete it. Anyhow, now this should work. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay. So, we want to select this based on this. Okay, the last thing we have to do on our master is set up that enumeration to instruct the enumeration on the widget. Where are we? Inventory items, item master. The last one would be item, set item type, And we grab this guy and dump him in here. Connect this dot with that dot. Alright, let's save, compile, and define our colors. Now I only want to tint the color slightly. By default it's white. You can see here if we scroll down to our tint, if we pick a harsh color like this, it might be a bit too much, so maybe we want to like decrease the saturation to 0.8. Just so it's kind of a subtle alteration as opposed to this very strong one. Let's set the tint back to default here. Yeah, it's white, that's cool. So, let's see here. Restorative items are green, but we probably want to decrease saturation to 0.85 because there already are details and shades on that texture. Hunting tools, we know are blue, but it's kind of a little bit of a color like this. 0.9, oh, oops. 0.85. Materials are white. So, treasures are yellow. I believe these are orange. Whoops. Monster parts are, I think, pure red. Should have my data sheet open, but I think I can just from memory and it should be fine. Clothing, I believe, is purple. Gifts are pink. Miscellaneous are white. Files are, I believe, like a beige, which is a little weird. And furniture is brown. And we'll get there by using a dark orange. But we can still make it a bit of a pastel. Files and treasures are almost the same. Yeah, that might be better. Yeah, that should be more than adequate. So now we can pick up items. And yeah, you know what? A lot more pleasing to look at. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. The last thing I want to do before I check in this is adjust the animation. I feel that we're translating a little hard. We're going from what, the value of 0 all the way to 300. I don't think it needs to go up that high. I think we can probably do half of that. I think if we increase by 150, it might look a little better. Maybe even less than that even. Sweet. Okay. I'm happy with that. Let's check this guy in. Save. Find. Update. Widget. Okay, updated. Notify. Pickup. Aesthetics, animation, and details. Okay, let me just go to my checklist here, or my task list rather, and knock off a few of these things we've covered. Okay. Well, you know, I guess we're a little bit over, but that's sort of, I think we can call this a wrap for our 2 hours of, dev stream for today. What's up with this music? Good gosh. Okay, right. So, yeah, that should bring us an end to the dev stream. We sort of exposed how we've built and set up the resources for this new ability. Feels good, man. Feels good. Liking how cool that ability is. And we fixed up the item pickup widget. It took a little longer than I thought it would take, honestly. There's a little bit of stumbling around, but, with each time we experience those, we learn a little bit more about how to do things in Unreal, and things eventually become second nature. Yeah, so I guess I'll call it a wrap for today's development stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked if you enjoyed the stream, please give us a like. If you didn't, you can go ahead and give it a dislike, I guess, although it'll break my heart. And if you want to support us, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. Want to get one of those custom URLs. Those real nifty custom URLs, right? So, we appreciate any support that you guys can give us in terms of subscriptions. You can also check us out on social media. We are posting on, all the big stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, IndieDB. If you want to see more of our content. And for tomorrow's dev stream, it'll probably be a little bit earlier. It might be in the morning, but I mean, it's on YouTube, so you guys can watch it either way. Alrighty, thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.